Hey everyone, it's quite a leap to go from being one of the biggest movie reviewers on YouTube to writing and directing your own independent horror film. But that's exactly what Chris Stuckmann did with his new film, Shelby Oaks. I don't know Chris Stuckmann, but I have watched his reviews and he does seem to love horror. I mean, who doesn't love horror? It's some of the best cinematic storytelling that we are seeing right now. So, the big question for Shelby Oaks is, can a movie reviewer step behind the camera successfully? And when you spend the bulk of your professional career critiquing other people's work, does that set a bar that's higher for your own work in the eyes of your peers? Let's get into it and see if Shelby Oaks flops or measures up and whether it might be a film for you. Shelby Oaks tells the story of Mia Brennan, whose younger sister Riley was part of a four-person YouTube team that investigated paranormal activities in Ohio. One night during a shoot, the entire team just disappears. A week later, three of them are found dead, and Riley's body, it's never recovered. 14 years later, a strange guy shows up at Mia's door and kills himself. In his hand is a videotape labeled Shelby Oaks. That tape, it has never seen before footage of her sister that reignites the mystery as Mia pieces together these all new clues, re examines some old videos, and tries to make sense of the man who died on her doorstep. Her search leads her back to the town of Shelby Oaks, where she hopes to finally uncover what might have happened to Riley. It's a strong setup that blends horror, mystery, and emotional drama about loss, guilt, and obsession. From the start, Shelby Oaks feels like a film made by somebody who understands horror. Chris Stuckman knows the rhythms and setups and the payoffs that work within this genre, and he manages to capture them. You can see his years as a reviewer reflected in the story's structure. The film, it builds around Mia's desperate need to know what happened to her sister, and that overpowering need really drives the story forward. The premise itself is solid. It's the kind of story that hooks you early with its mix of supernatural tension and psychological storytelling. You get the sense that this isn't just a film about something paranormal happening. It's also about how far grief can push someone to find meaning and what they're willing to risk along the way. While the story works well on paper, there are moments that feel kind of thin or a little too convenient in how those clues line up. Some of the discoveries feel obvious, and Mia occasionally forces connections that don't entirely hold up. Still, for a debut film, the logic mostly works, and once Mia commits to the search, her choices do feel consistent. Camille Sullivan plays Mia Brennan, and she's genuinely compelling. She brings a believability to the role that made me really like her as a character. You understand her obsession as she gets pulled into the mystery of her sister's disappearance and how easy it is to get caught between grief and hope. Mia's husband, played by Brendan Sexton III, which is a mouthful to say, I feel sorry for that guy, he provides a counterbalance to her obsession, but he's kind of an inert character who doesn't contribute much to the story. They talk about wanting to have a baby, and there's an empty crib in the house, but kind of like, who buys a crib before they even are pregnant? If she had lost a baby, that would have been meaningful, and that crib would have said a lot. But that's never mentioned in the film. It feels more like set dressing, meant to signal Mia's desire for a child and to highlight what's missing between these two people. I think the film would have been stronger if it wasn't just a sister focused story. This could have easily been solved by having Mia's husband play a more active role. It could have been interesting to see him join the investigation with her, watching them work together or fall apart. That could have added a whole lot more tension and made Mia's choices feel a lot less isolated. Instead, Mia has to carry the story all on her own while she does it. It feels like there was emotional conflict that was left untouched that could have added so much more to the film. It could have added or enriched that whole layer of the story. As for Riley, we see her mostly through old footage, memories, and videos she recorded with her team. She comes across as adventurous, curious, fearless. What we see of her is pretty strong, but I wish there'd been more scenes between Mia and Riley together to fully sell who these women were to each other before Riley disappeared. One of Shelby Oaks' strongest aspects is its mythological backbone. The story blends paranormal folklore with grounded psychological tension and that shadowy figure that lingers just out of sight, the haunted locations, and the reoccurring use of dogs as part of the story's symbolism. They all work together to create an eerie sense of presence. This is great stuff, and it's where Stuckmann's direction really does excel. The film captures that unsettling feeling of seeing something move in your peripheral vision, only to find nothing there when you look. Those moments are effective and they feel earned. The use of practical effects also helps build that sense of dread and doesn't rely on the unearned jump scares or lots of visual effects to kind of make their point. What really gives the film depth, though, is the connection between family and fear. The story within Shelby Oaks understands that what terrifies us most often ties back to the people we love and the idea of losing them or never finding them again. It's a universal fear, and Stuckmann uses it to great effect. That emotional through line really makes the horror feel personal, not just supernatural. There's also a fascinating layer of small town superstition woven into the story. And if you have ever walked through a ghost town, you will feel that same empty eeriness in Shelby Oaks. He does a real good job of mimicking that feel. The film leans into the local lore, focusing in on the horror ties to strange disappearances, failed communities, and whispered legends that everyone in town knows, but no one's willing to talk about. It's a familiar approach, but it feels genuine here because it's rooted in the character's beliefs, and that really does make all the difference. This is a low budget production, and you can feel that at times. However, when it comes to low budget horror, it's easy to extend some grace as long as the story holds up. Some of the CGI is kind of rough, and a few of the practical effects could have benefited just a little more from polish. Still, considering what Stuckmann was working with, the film looks remarkably good. The cinematography does a lot of heavy lifting. Shadows, framing, subtle lighting choices. They all create atmosphere without needing expensive tricks. The tone feels consistent and intentional in how it uses the available tools, and it pulls from classic horror influences where tension builds slowly and the real fear comes from what you imagine rather than what you see. And that works in the film's favor because it leans into emotion, suspense, and human vulnerability. There are moments when the editing could be a little bit tighter or where a scene lingers a little longer than necessary. But I feel like I say that about every movie nowadays. And those things feel like learning moments for this film rather than true flaws. This is a debut feature, and you can tell it's a passion project rather than just a paycheck for this guy. And given the films that have been in theaters lately, I appreciate a decent passion project because you can feel that love in the story. It comes through. The biggest issue in Shelby Oaks isn't the story itself, it's the occasional lapses in logic. For instance, there's the scene where Mia decides to drive out to the abandoned town of Shelby Oaks in the middle of the night. There's no reason she has to leave right then because there's no deadline, no urgency pushing her out the door. That choice doesn't make a lot of sense. It feels like one of those decisions that characters make in horror films just to move the plot forward. In reality, most people would wait until morning, especially considering where she was going. Once she's there, though, her choices are more logical and everything flows well. There's also a minor issue with how some of the clues are handled. I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier. Certain discoveries feel just a bit too easy, like they should have been found years earlier, especially since the original case involved famous internet team that sparked a wave of online attention. It's a small detail, but it undercuts the investigation. And I think that if Mia's husband had been part of the investigation, it might have brought more urgency or more energy into those moments. And I think it would have helped to explain maybe how a fresh set of eyes could see something that she or others hadn't seen because they were too in the middle of it. Even so, the film does keep you engaged. Each discovery, even the predictable ones, pushes the story forward, and the pacing holds steady with only a few exceptions. And the tension builds in a very natural way. It never overstays its welcome, which is something that many first time directors struggle with and never achieve. So, is Shelby Oaks worth the ticket price? If you're a horror fan, I think you're going to find enough here to enjoy. It has a strong emotional center, believable performances, and a good balance of mystery and atmosphere. If you're a fan of Chris Stuckmann's YouTube channel, there's something fascinating about seeing him take this leap into filmmaking. You can feel his passion for the genre. And even when the film stumbles, it stumbles with sincerity. This isn't a blockbuster level horror film. It's a modest, character driven story with heart. It's perfect for a night out with friends or for anyone who wants something to get them in the mood for the Halloween season. It's the kind of film that lingers with you after it ends. Not because it terrified you, but because it makes you think about what fear really means when it's tied to love and loss. However, if you are not drawn to horror, if you are not a fan of debut filmmakers because of the small mistakes that often come with working on a limited budget, I don't know that this film is going to change your mind. If you're not a fan of Chris Stuckmann or you were irritated by some of his commentary last year, your patience with him as a first time filmmaker might be a little less forgiving than it would be for someone who is an unknown. Whether intentional or not, when a film reviewer decides to make his own movie, the bar feels higher when you are reviewing that movie. Reviews for this film are likely to be a little sharper than usual. And I'll admit that maybe my own review might lean a little more critical than I would normally have done in an effort to just be fair here. Still, while Shelby Oaks isn't perfect, it is an ambitious and thoughtful film for someone who clearly understands the language of horror. And Chris Stuckmann sets out to tell a story about grief, family, and things that haunt us. And I think he succeeds more often than not. Shelby Oaks is smarter than a lot of recent horror releases. And I'm glad to see someone follow through on their dream. I think that's a lovely thing. And congratulations to him. So, enough for me. What about you? Have you heard about Shelby Oaks? Are you planning to go see it? I'm really curious to hear from horror fans and YouTube fans alike to see if they're looking forward to this film, if they're going to see it in a theater, they're going to wait for streaming. Let me know in the comments. Let's definitely talk about this one. Thanks for being here, everybody. Please remember to give this review a like and to subscribe and to share it with a friend who might be thinking about going to see Shelby Oaks. While you're here, you can also check out another review, and I will see you all again soon. In the meantime, happy viewing. Bye for now.